Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Oxnard Live. I'm your host, Daniel Chavez Jr. As we all know, that COVID-19 has done a tremendous harm to our businesses, small and large. Some businesses having to shut down, some even temporarily shutting down, or even laying off employees. We also saw through social media many people starting to take their hobbies and turn it into a business. Joining me tonight is Elidet Bordon, who will be talking about creating proven marketing techniques to either help grow your business or start a business using your own hobbies. So please join me in welcoming Elidet Bordon.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well, Elidet. How are yourself?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for joining me. During these difficult times, it's always important to have some experts join us to be able to help our businesses, especially our small businesses here in the city of Oxnard. As we learned from Nancy Lindholm a couple of weeks ago, that we actually have a lot of small businesses here in the city of Oxnard, and I'm pretty sure they can definitely use your help tonight. So, first, tell me a little bit on how you got involved in marketing. Um, what interests you?
Well, this is something I've been doing since I was maybe like 19, 20. I actually went to school for product development and global marketing and studied all of this back in the late 90s. So it's something that I've always been into. I worked in advertising. I used to work for the VC Reporter. I started my own magazine. But what started the recent launch was that my daughter, she was 9 at the time, she was raising money for a fundraiser, and I used some of my marketing techniques. And at the time, she had 150 followers on her Instagram, and I had 500, and she raised in the time of her fundraiser $96,000. And people kept asking me, how'd you do it, how'd you do it? And during COVID, people were losing their jobs, and I was just getting overwhelmed with all the amount of questions. So I decided to create kind of like a portal so they could get those questions answered without me having to go through each one. And that's what started the recent me helping small businesses here in Oxnard.
Awesome. So let's try to figure this out. A lot of businesses throughout the county, throughout the nation, have been dealing with lockdowns and shutdowns. A lot of them had to lay off employees. Some even had to be introduced for the very first time to technology, to do order ins and then pick up at the curb or whatever it may be. What advice do you have to try to market it to for those businesses so that they're able to still keep clients, still continue to build clients, so that they're able to survive during this pandemic?
Well, first, let's give a name to what the process is called. What you're talking about is focusing on the internet. That's actually called, the digital pivot. A lot of businesses didn't actually catch up with the times, and this pandemic is forcing them to kind of like, hey, get on, have an online presence. And online having an online presence, a lot of people misunderstand what that means. It doesn't mean that you're posting every day. It doesn't mean that you're focused so much on content that you lose yourself to the internet. You have to control the internet. So a lot of that, what's happening, what you're talking about, is called the digital pivot. The biggest misconception people have about that is that, well, people are struggling. Yes, a lot of people, millions of people are struggling. But during the time when Amazon made billions, a lot of this money is being shifted is because people are still spending money. Not everybody is lost their job. Not everybody is, a lot of people are working from home, especially those tech savvy jobs that already make 6 figures. And we have a lot of those inventory accounting. So I always tell people like that just forced them to kind of catch up with the times. Another thing is to stop thinking of it as, hey, people are struggling, so I'm not going to make any business, and they don't even try because they think that because they're struggling, everybody else is. But that's not the real world. A lot of people are struggling, but a lot of them are not. And if Amazon made billions, there's a piece of the pie for other people. A lot of people are shopping small now. If people watch Shark Tank, I don't know if anybody watches Shark Tank. The latest episode, they talked about that, and they talked about how this actually exploded their sales during the pandemic. So there's money to be made. You just have to know how to get those customers.
Awesome. So in dealing with this pivot, what would those customers have to do? What would be their first steps to actually gain those customers?
So one of the first things I like to do with everybody is do like an audit of their online presence. Do they have a website? Do they have an Instagram? What does that look like? And you have to know kind of the journey of how your customer is going to find you. That doesn't mean that you're on Instagram and you're looking to get 10,000 followers, right? It means if somebody has, for example, a restaurant, what are they most likely going to go after, right? The post of the pictures that look delicious, but they're probably going to Google. You have to find the journey of the customer. How are they going to find you? Another thing they have to do is make sure everything is consistent. I've seen a lot of businesses where they post different things and they don't have a brand and you can't tell what it looks like. And it's like a mishmash. People confuse the three pillars of a company, right? The branding, which is the look and feel of the company, the advertising, which is your paid promotions, and the marketing, which involves all those, social media channels. If you don't have all three, and you're not setting up and people don't recognize your logo, especially when we're community based here in Oxnard, it's easy to get lost in that shuffle. It is so easy to get lost. So the first thing I'd like to do is get people to audit themselves. If they were to look at their Instagram, is that something that their customer is going to be like, I want to eat there or I want to shop there? Because a lot of the times it's not, it doesn't even have consistency across the channels.
So for a new business, that because there was a lot of businesses that also started during this pandemic,
Yes.
they were barely starting off. What steps did they have to take to be able to support growing themselves?
Well, the number one thing to be a successful business is solving a problem. So, solving a problem as far as what problem are they solving for the people during the pandemic, right? Are they eating? Do they need cheaper food? Do they need like the technology that they're offering? Do they need gifts for somebody? Is it a lifestyle brand? Some of the most successful things that these businesses have done is position themselves in the market. There's a misconception that you have to offer great deals and lower your price on everything to catch that customer, but that's not true. Tiffany's doesn't lower the price for a Walmart customer. And right now what we're seeing during the pandemic is people are still going after those luxury things, like they're eating like the gourmet baked goodies. They're doing the nails. They cost like $50-$60 to get those fancy nails, sometimes more. Their hair done. People are still spending that, but you have to solve a problem. Why would people are not going to go shopping because you have something to offer. They're going to go shopping because they need what you have to offer. And if somebody wants to look good and have their hair done or have their nails done, or they want to take their family out to dinner, but they can't, so they have to, eat it at home. They're solving a problem. Like, hey, take me home. We have pickup, delivery. If you're making it easy for the customer, they're most likely going to come to you. But if you're not, and you're just posting what you do all day without understanding what the customer is looking for, you're not going to get customers. I have a lot of clients that they're into kind of the same industries, right? Right now, a lot of them do like the eyebrows, or they do the eyelashes, or they do beauty. And there's enough customers for everybody, but not if they're just posting what they're selling, right? Are they painting the picture, right? You're going to go out like, hey, you can't go out anywhere, but you still want to look good in your Instagram photos. If they're painting the picture for their customer, like, hey, get this done for your family photos, even if it's at home or whatever, people are most likely to kind of be triggered to buy. But if you're just posting like, hey, look at what I have, look at me, that's not good enough. You have to find what makes them kind of like open their wallet. And if you're not acknowledging that emotional connection, they're not going to buy. And you may think it's not emotional, but having dinner with your family, being confident, especially as a woman, having that whole self-care routine, if you're not finding that emotional connection, people are not going to buy, especially during the pandemic when they're watching where their money is going.
Exactly. So, for those that find it difficult to try to find ways to paint this picture for new clients, what are some techniques, like basic, I mean basic techniques, so that they're able to convey to their clients or their potential clients or customers, like, hey, this is what we do, this is how we can make you feel, or this is the type of food we sell, this is the type of service we sell. uh, and then it actually goes into what happens to those businesses that are selling more of a service, not necessarily a good, an actual object. How do those people compete in the marketing world?
So all of that has to do with, and there's a term for that too. It's called positioning in the market, right? So you have to find your position in the market. If you're selling a service, right? Like for example, I had a previous client who used to do house cleaning. If you're selling a service, you have to know what your position in the market is. Are you good because you have lower prices, or are you good because you offer like a higher end service? Because you can't do both. I see a lot of people trying to offer like the top tier service, and they keep giving discounts, and that doesn't work. Because as I mentioned before, so a brand like Tiffany's doesn't do that. They don't keep lowering the price to appeal to the Target or Walmart shopper. So the first thing that I would recommend a business to do is to find their position in the market. What is it that they're in the brand? Are they a lifestyle brand like Gucci, right? Somebody who's buying a purse from Gucci, they're not doing it because they need a purse. They're doing it to show their status, right? So their status, their position in the market is high end. Now, if you're talking about, I need a purse, and you go to Target, Target's going to be economical. So you have to find which one it is that you are. Find your position in the market, because what's going to happen if you don't is you're going to try to appeal to like, hey, we're giving this away, hey, we're offering all these discounts, and guess what, you're going to get people that are going to be used to that lower price, or they're going to be used to that because you don't know your position in the market. Which is why I always tell people, you don't do those Facebook Instagrams without the Instagram giveaways without knowing what the bottom line is. If you're doing a giveaway and you keep saying, hey, follow me and get tagged 3 of your friends, and I'll pick a winner, you're just giving away free stuff, right? But that doesn't mean they're going to stick around or they're going to become customers. And if you go in giving stuff away without having a goal, like saying, my goal is to get more paying clients, or my goal is to get more followers. If you do an Instagram giveaway and you get all those new followers, and then you're mad because you didn't get any sales, it doesn't make sense, because your goal was never to get sales. You said you wanted more followers. So it's so important to find your position in the market. Are you a Target? Are you a Walmart? Are you a high-end service? Are you an economical service? Are you a service that people need? Are you a service that, like house cleaning? A lot of people started hiring to, like sanitize their home for company or whatever they want to do. But you have to find what position in the market you have. This is going to be able, this is how you're going to be able to find your target market, right? Like, you're not trying to reach everybody. You're trying to reach the person whose your position in the market appeals to. So the first thing they have to do is that positioning in the market.
So let me ask, because you brought up a really good point, was in regards to, you could have all these followers but not all the customers you thought you were going to gain. But isn't the traditional way of the more people that see it, the better? And that's how you build your business because you're having more eyes look at you versus maybe the competition.
That's it. You bring up a great point, but no, that's not true because you could be targeting all the wrong people. So, let me give you a good example, right? I always tell people don't go after followers, and they'll tell me, "But Ellie, I only have 50 followers," and I'm like, "Okay, if I invited you to my house and I said, hey." Daniel, there's 50 people who heard about your podcast and they're so interested in hearing what you have to say. Come to my house, what would you say? Right? Like there's 50 people at my house. Wouldn't you be like, wow, that's 50 people who heard about me, about my podcast, and I want to listen to what he has to say, right? That's your market. Are you going to turn around and say, you know what, Ellie? No, because there's 1,000 people out there that haven't heard yet. And I'm going to ignore my current followers so I could go after these 1,000 people who might not even be in your market. They might be from another city, another state where Oxnard doesn't apply. I always tell people, don't ignore your customers. Don't ignore your current followers because they already made the decision to follow you, give you their time, and they're willing to listen to what you have to say. When you're doing your giveaways, you do it for the people that are following you. You save the best for them because they already started following you. And what happens is they start referring you, right? Oh, look what I bought from this person. They put you on their Instagram stories. They put you on their social medias, like, look what I bought from so and so, and they tag you. That's the best kind of referral to get that organic following. You can't ignore your base. And if my daughter was able to raise $98,000 on 150 followers, then surely, if other people can target their market too. But if you're ignoring the people that are already giving you their eyes, their ears, their attention, and they most likely will be giving you their referrals, you're never, followers is not the goal here. You have to get the right followers because then it doesn't make sense. If you had 1 million followers and they were all from New York and they didn't listen, they didn't interact with you, they didn't do any of those things, then what was the point of getting all those followers? Then you don't start showing up on their feed. The algorithm starts changing, right? Because nobody's interacting, so it doesn't start showing up on their feed. So it's so important to go after the right followers, not after everybody. Not everybody is your client, and people have to be comfortable with when people tell you they're not interested, they're saving you time because now you could go give the effort to someone who is interested.
So let me ask you about that. How do you identify your base followers, and
So
how do you continue to interact with them to keep them still supporting you?
So I actually use a lot of my DMs a lot because I haven't updated my personal Instagram. My base following are small businesses that are home based, that maybe they make something from, they make arts and crafts, maybe baked goods, maybe they have a small shop where they sell whatever out of their home. Most of them are from Oxnard. And because of my reputation, especially with the community, I get a lot of word of mouth. So I don't have to have I'm actually really good behind the scenes. So like I could drive you around the city and tell you I worked on their marketing or I did their logo. I work great behind the scenes because my attention goes to my clients. So my customer base are home-based business owners right now. But my experience comes from corporate. I've actually worked in the music industry. A lot of these techniques still work across all industries because the psychology of people, how people react, it's pretty much the same. People want to be liked and noticed, and if you know those triggers, it's going to be the same thing. But my base is right now the small business, the home-based business. I do have a few of like corporate clients, but I wanted to give back to the community to, they're struggling right now. A lot of people lost their jobs. People were telling me like, Ellie, I don't want to go get, a food donation. And I said, why not? That's what it's for. And so we just hunkered down and, we were able to figure out how to monetize our hobby, how to work from home and get the right things in place, the right, licenses, the right permits, because that became my new market right now. So right now I work really well with people who want to start their business from home. Maybe they don't have babysitters and they have to watch their kid.
And that is a great segue into our next part of turning a hobby into a business, or maybe even a side business that you still keep your job, maybe a part-time level, and then keep this as a side thing. Across social media, and I'm sure you've seen it, people are popping up with different hobbies. Some are making jewelry, others are making shirts and cups and paintings and doing all of these things. Now, what would be the process for them to actually get started after they, establish their business, they know what they're going to call it? And actually, let me back up a little bit. Name branding. Branding is so important.
Yeah.
What is your advice for those that are wanting to take their hobby and brand themselves appropriately, so that they're able to reach out to a good market?
Yeah, so one of the best advices that I have for that is you have to make it memorable. I've seen a lot of people, they make like those cups and like those keychains or whatever, but then they just have like Lisa's whatever 805, right? And it's just on Instagram and that's it. And it's like, okay, you can get business there, but if it's not like memorable and people don't remember that, it's going to be harder for them to find. So your presence has to be really strong. Your online marketing has to be really strong. When somebody's first starting, I always say you have to have some goals as well. Like, especially once you have your name, certain hobbies, you used to be able to actually write them off on your taxes, but they don't allow that anymore. And so it really hurts the home-based business owners. I always tell people to really, if their goal is to replace their current income or make a certain amount of income, to get legit and get registered, because buying products, showing a loss and all of that could help them when they're doing their taxes. They might not have to pay any, they still have to file taxes. But the first time I went into business, I had a loss. I showed a loss. I started a magazine. We invested $6,000, but we spent $6,000 and it was a wash. And I didn't have to pay taxes on that because it showed that, everything that I spent and what I did and how I pursued my business and the things that I bought, I was able to write them off. If you're not becoming legit and you tell me, Ellie, I want to make $1,000,000, but you only have $300 in inventory, that's not going to be realistic. So always have a goal. The first thing I would do is make sure, what is your goal with your hobby? Are you trying to have $100 extra a week or to replace your current income? And then work backwards from there, right? Like, how many do you have to sell to reach this, and divide it by the amount of days in the week? And it seems like simple when I tell it to people. Like, if you want to make $700 a week, then you have to sell $100 a day. They're like, okay, that's doable. But if you don't have a goal and you're just putting stuff out there and then Monday comes and you don't do anything to reach that $100 sale, then you're never going to reach that goal. And if you can't make your $100, how are you going to ever make uh, $1,000,000 doing, like, how are you going to scale if you can't even provide for that first, that $100 sale?
Let me ask you, I'm assuming it's never recommended to go bankrupt before you even establish clients. So realistically, what type of budget goal should a person, again, during this pandemic, people lost their jobs, which means their funding that they have for their own personal finances are low. Um, we don't expect them to go out there and spend everything they have and still can't start their business. So realistically, where should a person's finances be when they're starting something like a hobby, turning it into a business?
That's a great question. It's going to be so different for everybody. The first magazine that I started with my brother, I invested out of my personal account, and I was willing to move back home with my mom, which I didn't want to do. I was willing to move back home with my parents when in my mid 20s, even though I moved out, 5, 6 years before then, to launch a magazine. But when I did the second one, my husband was the only one working, and we had a savings, and I went through all the savings to launch the second magazine, and we took out a loan, and it paid off for me because it landed me other opportunities. But it's going to be a personal journey. The first business I launched, which was my consulting business, I started off with a website, which I paid like $50, and then I bought business cards, and that was it. And now you have more than that. Right now you have Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all these free resources where you don't necessarily need to have everything all at once. You could kind of hold off on a few things if your presence is strong enough. But it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to make $1 million out of 10 cents, that's probably not going to happen. But if you're able to take out a loan to kind of float your business idea, and some of the best ideas come from that, right? They come from taking on that debt, which I usually don't recommend, but it worked for me. um, if if it's going to be that personal journey, this is why I tell people, I tell my clients, start off small. Amazon didn't start off as Amazon. It's worth over $1 trillion. That's the value of Amazon right now, right? It didn't start off as $1 trillion company. It started off, and that to me is a wild number. It didn't start off that way. It started off in someone's garage, and so did Microsoft, and so did Dell, and so did Facebook, and so did all these. Kinko started off at somebody's garage also. Don't be afraid and ashamed to start off small, to start off in your kitchen counter and creating these packages and starting off small. If you could only invest $50 in yourself, what would you do with it? Maybe you can't get a website right now, but you could have your Facebook, your Instagram, your TikTok handles already reserved. You could create the content that you're going to create and use that $50 maybe to buy the supplies and start putting stuff out there. But if you're able to put more, and you're doing 100, 200, 500, 1,000, then sit down and create that budget. I never recommend starting a business without creating that budget, because people will blow through money and not even realize it. Oh, it's just $5. Oh, it's just $10. It's just, no, all of those, keep your receipts. That's another one. Separate your receipts, because come tax time, you're going to need them. But for some people, it's going to be starting off small. And I always recommend that. Start off with what you're able to lose, right? You're able to lose. I'm a saver. So even when I started working my regular job, I save money because I was so used to being poor. I was so used to couponing and all of that. So for me, when my husband and I decided to risk the money that we were willing to risk, it was a family decision, and he was willing to come along with the journey because he believed in my dream. But we were able to risk that, and we were able to do it without sacrificing. I was going through this when it wasn't a pandemic, and it was hard for me. So now that it's a pandemic, it became easier. So that's going to be a personal journey. And I always tell people it's okay to start small, because no big company they didn't get big overnight. Amazon took, a decade. eBay, PayPal, all of these companies, they did not get big overnight. They started off small in someone's home. They were working from home at that time. So there's no shame in like, yeah, I want to replace my income, but I only have $20, so I better make that stretch, right? There's no shame in starting small.
So what if you don't have a garage? Because I know a lot of these
And
businesses
kitchen table.
started in garages, and you named a few, and I believe Disney was also another one that started in a garage. So it's a number, and I agree with you that a lot of these businesses, they start off small. They start in somebody's home, and then they just kind of build up with time. And it goes back to what you said about their base, their following, and that just started slowly growing. So let me ask you another one, because um, you mentioned TikTok, you mentioned Instagram and Facebook. We're seeing a lot of people um, selling their hobbies online. They're creating these social media pages, but it always comes back to, is
Followers.
it the right price for that product? Some people may look. Personally, I have a friend. She crochets these dolls. They're amazing dolls. They take a lot of time and effort to do it. She sells them for $100. Some people complain about it, that that's too expensive. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
So what what is considered an appropriate price? Because you're not only paying for the product. In my mind, you're kind of paying for the person's time, you're paying
Yeah.
for their creativity.
Mhm.
What are appropriate prices so that they don't hurt themselves right out the gate?
That's a good one that I actually did acknowledge on my Instagram. You always want to make sure you cover your costs, right? So you're gonna have to cover the materials. You're gonna have to cover the labor, right? How much are you making per hour? Because you don't work for free, and you have to be comfortable. Nobody works for free, and we shouldn't be expected to work for free. So your labor, your skill, how many people can do what she can do, right? With the dolls, that's unique. So if it should cover her skill, her time, her materials, and her overhead, right? She's probably at home using the light and using whatever everything that to make that one doll. For the person that says $100 is too expensive, that's not her client. Like if she has one doll and she like, I don't know how much it takes her to make one doll, but I'm just gonna throw a number out there for the sake of this conversation. Say that it takes her a week to make this one doll. It might be more, it might be less, but say it takes a week, right? She's not looking for 100 customers at that point. She's just looking for the right one to send this doll home to that customer. And that's how I look at it. I don't need a lot of customers. I get a lot of referrals that I have to turn down because I don't have that kind of time to be with everybody. So I'm not looking for millions of customers. I'm looking for the ones that are willing to pay my price, because my prices start at 750. The average is, for a client, I charge upwards of 1,500 and more, depending if it's corporate. So I'm not trying to look for everybody to pay those prices. I'm only looking for that one person that's willing to pay these prices. And so the people that complain, she needs to be able to say, well, thank you for your inquiry, thank her for her time, and that's it. You have to be okay that not everybody is your customer. Not, the people that I keep bringing back Tiffany's and Walmart. The person that's looking for a ring at Tiffany's is not going to go to Walmart, because what they're looking for is a status. And they're not going to lower their prices to Walmart. So they're not looking for Walmart customers. They're looking for the people willing to spend these prices. I always see these memes that go around that say, you never see somebody advertising a Rolls Royce because they know the kind of brand that they have, but that's not true. The reason people never see it is because they're not marketing to them. They're not their clientele. They're not their target market, right? I read a lot of like Barron's, Wall Street Journal. I read a lot of these upscale, affluent magazines because of the job that I'm in, not because I'm the target market, but because of the job that I'm in. And so I see all these ads. I see the ones where you could rent a private jet, you could rent a yacht, you could buy a Rolls Royce, how exclusive they are, because that's who they're targeting to. So the people that always say, that's why you never see an ad for a Rolls Royce, because they know how strong their brand is. That's not true. They do advertise. You've never seen it because you're not their market. And that's how she has to see her dolls. That's not her market. They know about it, and that's great. But say thank you for your inquiry and thank them for their time, and that's all you can do. And the person that's going to pay for it, it's going to be the person who wants that unique, that talent, that skill. And again, it goes back to painting the picture. What kind of doll is this? A decorative doll? Is this a doll to play with? What kind of doll is this? Because narrowing that down is going to help her find that market. Like the time that she There's a term for that. It's called creating the customer profile. And that's another thing that I talk about, people talk with clients. You have to know what kind of person is going to buy it, because you multiply that times 100. You create, your customer profile. Who's going to buy this? I have this little knitted doll, right? Who's going to buy this little doll? Is it a decorative piece? Is it a toy? Because parents pay a lot of money to buy those, the American Girl dolls, and those are not cheap, and they buy them for their child. So there's a market for that. And in order to find out that market, you have to create the customer profile. Who is going to buy this product? Because that's how you target the hashtags, that's how you target the groups, that's how you target. It's probably not going to be your friends and family. Most businesses will not survive if you're only reaching out to friends and family. You have to go out of your comfort zone. That's why. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Let me ask you about that. You brought up in regards to not only targeting friends and family, but that should be your starting point, right? You should start with friends and family, and then slowly start building up out of that comfort zone. Because your friends and family are not going to buy every single product that you end up creating every single time. So after you pretty much exhausted your friends and family, how do you go and start reaching out? Do you tell your friends and family like, hey, refer
Uh,
me to your friends and and other family members?
I always say that you should not use your friends and family as customers right off the bat. The best thing that they can do for you is be your referral. If they believe in your product, so they could tell their circle of friends. And you have to be careful how they do that, because you don't want to sound like multi-level marketing, which is something completely different. But I don't work with anybody who sells like Mary Kay or Airbon or It Works or whatever, because they don't own their brand, and it relies on just reaching out to friends and family, and that creates a lot of conflict. And there's relationships that have been broken because that's what they do, is they only reach out to friends and family. But your friends and family are probably your best supporters, especially if you're not asking them to spend money, because what's the first thing a friends and family is going to ask for you is a discount. And the biggest respectful thing you could do is never ask a friend who has a business, don't ask them for a discount, because they're already marking their prices to make their business. And it creates like that burden, right? Like, well, she didn't hook me up. And some businesses do hook up friends and family, but you're not going to be profitable. So I would use friends and family as like your cheerleaders. They don't need to be your customers, right? They don't need to be your customers. They need to be your cheerleaders. And some of the best referrals I've gotten were from friends and family who told me, hey, I don't have a small business, but I have this friend of mine needs marketing help, or this friend of mine needs what you're doing. This friend of mine needs a logo. Can you help them? Have been the best referrals, because even though my friends and family don't need what I have to offer, their circle needs what I have to offer. And that's the best kind of like the most legit referral you can get, because it's somebody who respects what you do and say, hey, check them out. They do drywall, they do painting, they do nails, and check out what they have to offer. Those are the best referrals you can get. But I always encourage to go outside of that, because your family is who you're related to, and that's not going to be a good customer profile. If your friends and family buy from you, thank them. Yes, absolutely. And be appreciative, but I wouldn't rely on them.
Now, let me ask you about hashtags. You made a comment about hashtags. Now, I'm curious about hashtags because you're supposed to, or it's my impression that your hashtags should be relating to whatever you're doing at that time. And then there's also the flip side to it, that you have to post between 1 to 3 times on Facebook between this time, and 2 to 6 times on Instagram between this time and this time. All these all these postings, is that beneficial? And then how do you develop a hashtag that's unique to you that people can still be able to see?
Okay, so recently, Instagram took out hashtags during the elections because there was a lot of misinformation. So there might be still some of that on some accounts. So I'm saying this with that in mind. There is a hashtag strategy. The one thing you want to do with the hashtag is not only hashtag your city, especially if you're a local business, because, you know, if you're a local business, you're not trying to get New York people, right? But also target your niche. So if you are doing something that like crocheting and knitting and all of that, you have to have those hashtags in there because it opens the world to people in in that industry, right? Whether it's a customer, whether it's a brand, whether it's a material. So I always recommend put cities. I always recommend look up, post at least between 7 to 15 hashtags, and it should be some big ones and some small ones. So some of the big major ones, like if you post your city, and then kind of narrow it down. So like mine, I have like Oxnard marketing on mine or Ventura County business on mine because I'm trying to get the locals, and those have less followers, but it's a tighter community. And not only post and link that, but also follow those hashtags. You could actually follow the hashtags when you're doing that because now you're networking within that circle of the people in that industry, and you learn a lot from them. So like in your case, it'd be the Oxnard podcast or Ventura County podcast or whatever hashtags you're adding, but also go through some big ones, right? Some made like content creator podcast or whatever it is, so you could meet other people who are doing what you do in their city, because it's a great connection to have and you learn from them. It's always great to learn from people who are doing, and it's not a competition. People think, I have a few clients that do eyelashes. There's enough room for everybody. You go to the store and how many different types of cola do you see, right? You see Coke and Pepsi, Shasta, RC, you see all of these, and guess what? There's enough to go around. Some people are going to want the expensive kind, and when they have parties, they're going to get the cheaper kind. Um, don't be afraid of the competition, because you should learn from your competition, right? Pepsi's been number 2 against Coca-Cola for decades now, and they're still making, it's still $1 billion company. I don't think they're going to cry about being that. So it's that hashtag strategy will open your eyes up to that industry, your competitors, or not competitors, your peers, I like to call them. And you'll learn, like, what are they posting? How are they getting reactions? And I'm not saying copy, definitely don't copy what they're doing, but you'll start seeing what people are reacting to. Like, oh, they like the behind the scenes. Oh, they like to showcase the materials, not just the product. You want to show the high quality product. I follow this girl on Instagram, and she knits as well. And she's always posting like hyperlapse videos of her knitting, talking about the materials. She's always talking about the next product. And I think that's a great way to for people to build that connection. People these days, especially during the pandemic, there's been a lot of like that, building that connection and using that hashtag strategy. You're going to start seeing what are your peers doing and how are people connecting to their brand and what can you learn from that. So the hashtags, yeah, I really I love them. But for full disclosure, they took them down because of the elections, and from my understanding, they're not completely back up yet. So you have to kind of wiggle through that for now.
I will agree with you about certain people on social media doing the time lapse for their products when they're creating their products. Because I know me personally, when I'm watching a video on social media, and a lot of times it's only a 60-second video, but you're watching it and you're kind of getting excited because you're like, man, I want to see what it is going to be at the end. But you can't do that on Instagram. There's no fast forwarding on Instagram. So you kind of have to watch the whole thing. Facebook, you can do that. TikTok, you can't fast forward it. You kind of have to just watch it. So it's kind of that exciting thing. And then once it finally reveals it, it's always like, wow, that's amazing. And then you end up following them. And then you get curious and then you purchase some things. I know I purchased some things off of TikTok from an artist. She does amazing work. Um, I got these two paintings for my daughter who loves Frozen. And the process that she takes is absolutely remarkable and they come out beautiful. So I completely agree. It's a connection. And then
Yeah.
it's the connection that really makes the difference with it. And then, after a while, you keep watching them over and over and over. And then you're like, you know what? I need to buy that. So then you go
Yes.
in there and you start buying.
It's it releases some like chemical in the brain because you have that connection to that hyperlapse and you have that actual product. So I always tell people want to know if you're making soap, people want to know about the materials, they want to know about the process. And a lot of the pushback I get is, well, what if they steal my technique, what if they copy what I'm doing? And I'm like, soap tutorials are out there a dime a dozen already. That's not what they're buying for, right? Like I know how I've seen so many tutorials on soap making, but I'm not about to spend a couple $100s just to make my own soap because it's not something I want to do, but I enjoy the process. So I recently bought a box of handmade soaps from a local artisan, and I really love the process that she used. And this is one of the things that I really love is that I asked her, hey, my daughter doesn't like using mica because it's ties to like child labor, and she's like, oh, no worries, I won't use it on her soap. And like, when can you do that with a big company? Right? I didn't ask for a discount. I only asked if it was possible, and she took care of it. Like, like I could not ask a bigger company to do that. Like, hey, this one soap has this one ingredient that we don't use. And it was a decorative ingredient, and she was able to not use it. And my daughter was happy. So when that connection with the small business owner it's more personal. And the more that you're creating that connection with the people, the more they're gonna buy from you. Amazon is making billions hand over fist right now. And even though I personally don't shop on Amazon, I do know that a lot of small businesses use Amazon to ship out their products. And I encourage that, even though I personally don't use them. But it's a great way for a smaller company to compete on a bigger scale. And there's different ways to do that. And they have an online presence. And a lot of people could take their small handmade product and put it on Amazon, on eBay, and make more sales that way. But the reason they're making money is because people are on their website. And so even though they are making money, there's a lot of businesses that are making a lot of money. I really encourage you to watch the latest episode. Anybody who's watching the latest episode of Shark Tank, I believe it's on Hulu, because they talk about a small business using Amazon and how during the pandemic, their sales went crazy. So it's a great way to I guess scale up a little bit.
Um, I just want to make a comment about you. Since I've known you, you've been very connected to the community of Oxnard and very supportive of small businesses. I do want to ask you about the plant that you have back there because you did make a comment that it
Oh
was
yeah,
from a small business. So
my
share
little
a little bit
plant.
about that.
I bought this plant. I buy a lot of stuff off of the small businesses I like to work with. So I bought this little plant from a local florist, right? She delivered, and I'm like, oh, I need something for, I'm going to be on this interview on Facebook. I want something for my background. And she's like, okay, it cost, this was $15 and it comes with a planter, but it's actually still potted. So you can still water the poinsettia and it'll last you all Christmas. Um, but yeah, I'm very big. I try not to buy flowers from grocery stores anymore. I only buy them from the vendors at the corners, from the little men selling flowers, or from smaller florists, local vendors. And I buy a lot of stuff, especially from people that I follow on Facebook or Instagram, especially if I'm trying to support. And that's another process of like the experience of shopping. A lot of people really miss the whole point of like when you're sending a package, they don't add their business name, they just put the product in a envelope and that's it. But I'm gonna show you something really quick. So I had bought this little set. It was for Dia de los Muertos from this girl called the Designing Chica. She used to work for, a newspaper. And when she delivers, I didn't even order this. She just added a thank you card. She added a print that her son drew. And then she added the instructions, right? So it's the experience of the shipping. So when you get a package, it feels like Christmas. And then she added all the stuff that I ordered in this little bag with her logo. And if you're going to be shipping stuff to people, the experience doesn't stop when you ship out the package. It hasn't even started for the customer. So when they get the package, how is it going to feel? Is it going to feel like Christmas? And for me, every time I order from this vendor, it feels like Christmas because she'll add all these fun little things to my bag. Like she added stickers, even though that's not what I ordered. She gave me a pan dulce pin, and it felt like Christmas. Like I opened it, I was like, oh, this was fun, right? And some people don't do that. They just ship the package. Half the time, they don't even put their logo or their name. And I don't even know, I forgot where I ordered it from. So if I want to order again, I can't. So if you're going to be shipping stuff out and using Amazon, make sure that you're creating that experience for when the person gets the package, because that's what makes it memorable. And this is why I order from her all the time. And then she'll tell you, don't forget to hashtag me on this so I could, or tag me if you do this project, right? And a lot of people just starting off, they miss that. They think that they got an order and they ship it and that's it, and they forget about the customer experience. And a lot of big businesses do that too. They forget about the customer experience. And this is where we're having the whole like, I probably won't order from them again. So it's always creative, make them feel like Christmas.
That's actually great advice to businesses and people that are turning their hobbies into a business. Elidet, thank you very much. A lot of information. If people want to reach out to you to maybe hire you for your services or to get advice from you or follow you on social media, where can they go to be able to reach out to you?
Well, they could reach out to me on Facebook on Elidet Bordon, Bordon, or find me on Instagram, the same name, Elidet.Bordon. And on my Instagram, even though I haven't updated in a while, you'll see information of how to take pictures, like picture techniques, the difference between marketing, advertising, and branding, pricing. We talked about pricing. So I break all of that down. A lot of my base, they do makeup or they sell baked goods. So a lot of my information is targeted towards that. But if you have any questions or anybody has any questions, that's how I make my post. Like whatever people are asking, I create the post. And that's a lot of free information for people that are already set up and they want to hire me. We could discuss what they need and then I could quote them on that.
Awesome. Thank you again, Elidet, for all of the information. A lot of terms that I did not know about, but I am very appreciative that you were able to join me and share all that information. And I'm pretty sure our viewers are equally appreciative of that as well. Um, so thank you, and thank you for sharing that you support local businesses and small businesses, because at the end of the day, that's what we all have to do, is really support our local businesses, because local businesses, small local businesses, make our communities very, very unique.
Right.
Thank you again.
Thank you for having me. And if anybody has questions, just add them and I'll go and answer them on the chat.
Sounds great. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Elidet Bordon, who is a marketing guru that shared a lot of information with us tonight. This is our last episode of December, as next week is Christmas.
Yay!
I want to encourage everyone, please, please celebrate safely. We are seeing in the media and through our county that the numbers are only increasing rapidly, including the number of deaths. Has not gone away, and I feel your guys' frustration and exhaustion with this, but we must try to stay together and stop the spread. Please protect yourself, your families, your friends. Your bubble may be connected to someone else's bubble, and you don't know who's in their bubble, and so on and so on. So please protect yourselves. Please celebrate safely as possible. And we will see you right back here on January 7th as we have Dr. Tom McCoy, who is the Oxnard Union High School District Superintendent. He will be talking to us about the experience for schools during this school year and how they plan on moving forward as the 2020 school year approaches in August. So Oxnard Live, all live and 100% real. Have a great night, everyone.
Bye.